This is take 3. Hi everyone, it's Emma, and today I'm doing 25 bookish facts about me. I'm not actually sure what the title of this video is. I think it's 25 bookish facts about me. So I came up with 25 random facts about myself that have to do with reading and books, and I'm just gonna tell them to you all so that you can get to know me a little bit better. The first fantasy book that I ever read was The Chronicles of Narnia by C.S. Lewis, but I hardly remembered it all because I was a very, very small child, and my parents read it to me. The first fantasy book that I remember reading was the Percy Jackson series, and I was homeschooled and I skipped school for 2 days and doubled up later so that I could read the first 4 books of the series. Magical realism is by far my favorite genre, and I only discovered it this year. YA fantasy is my second favorite genre, and I only got back into reading it this year. I always loved the classics that I had to read for school, and so classics were my favorite up until very recently. I had never in my life experienced a reading slump until this year, and I think the reason for that is because reading was always just purely fun for me. It was not stressful at all, and I didn't put pressure on myself to read quickly or anything. But last year, 2016, when I was trying to read 100 books in a year, there was a little bit of stress and a little bit of pressure, and I think that is why I experienced my first reading slump ever. I have to be reading 2 books at a time, or 1 book and a manga, or 1 book and a poetry book. I cannot just read 1 book at a time. It doesn't work. It's not an enjoyable reading experience for me. I'm not really sure why. It's just how my brain works. And I can read 2 fantasy books at a time and not get them confused. For some reason, my brain works a lot better that way, and I read much faster. I am not very strict about keeping my books in top condition unless it's someone else who's reading my book, and then I'm crazy about it. But for myself, I don't mind if my books get a little bit beat up or a little bit worn, especially if they're a paperback. If it's a paperback, I don't mind writing in it. I'm just not one of those people. Sometimes I bend back the cover and it doesn't bother me. I try to always read 100 pages a day, but I don't stress about it. Sometimes it doesn't happen, but that is my general goal every day, is to read 100 pages. I prefer hardcover books, but I used to be a hardcore paperback fan. I used to only want the paperback, and I hated reading from hardcover, and somehow recently I've just become completely a hardcover book person. I'm not sure if it's because of these shelves and the fact that paperbacks don't work on these shelves, but now I love hardback books. A genre that I really enjoy and I hardly ever reach for is historical fiction. All of the historical fiction books that I've read I absolutely loved, and I really loved all the historical fiction books I read for school growing up, but for some reason it is not what I reach for, and it's something that I would like to reach for more in the future. When I was 8 years old, my brother and I went to a Harry Potter costume contest for one of the book releases. I'm actually not sure which book it was. I dressed up as Hermione and he dressed up as Ron, but there was this part where you had to stand up and introduce yourself, and I was too shy to do it, so my brother stood up and introduced himself and then introduced me. He won the competition, but I didn't because I couldn't introduce myself because I was too shy. But when he won, they put him up on the counter and he pulled me up with him. I have disliked every John Green book I've ever read, and I've tried many of them. I don't know what it is, but I strongly dislike his books. There's many reasons for that, which I don't have time to get into in this video, but I've never enjoyed a John Green book, and I've given up reading them completely. I do judge a book by its cover. The cover is there for a reason, and the design matters a lot to me. If it is a beautiful cover, it sells me more in buying it. I appreciate it when people take the time to make the cover look very nice, so I do judge a book by its cover, and I'm not really sorry for that. I absolutely love fantasy books that are Russian-based, like the Grisha trilogy or the Crown's Game. If it is a Russian-themed fantasy book, I will 100% read it. I just love those worlds. I love the whole feeling of it. It's so magical, and I wish there were a lot more of them. I refuse to buy mass market paperbacks at all costs. I don't care how much I want to read the book, and it's right there in the bookstore. I will go home and hunt down a different version of that book because I just just can't do it. I can't read them. It's so hard to read. If I'm in a bookstore and there are strangers around me and I'm in a section where I know the books or I love the books, I have the desire to give recommendations to everyone around me. But I don't, because I don't work at the bookstores and I feel like that would be really weird. But if I see someone there and they're looking at books, I want to give them recommendations and I want to be like, let me help you find the good ones. If a book takes place at a boarding school, I do want to read it. I don't care how cheesy or dumb it is. I want to read it anyways, unless it has like super objectionable content or whatever. I want to read it, and I will usually enjoy it even if it's a super cheesy, not that well written book, because there's something about boarding schools that are just so much fun. I thought I was a Gryffindor my whole life because when Pottermore was first invented, I was sorted into Gryffindor, and then I lost my username and couldn't remember like what email I'd used or whatever. So this year I made a new account and I got sorted into Slytherin, and I had an identity crisis and I took the test like 5 times to make sure, and 3 out of 5 of those times I got Slytherin. So I finally gave in, and now I'm like the proudest Slytherin ever. I'm not a Gryffindor and I'm not a Ravenclaw. I am Slytherin. It just fits my personality so much better. But for a while there, I was in a serious identity crisis. Now I can't imagine not being a Slytherin. Generally, I prefer long series to standalones or trilogies. Trilogies are not usually my favorite. It doesn't feel like there's usually enough time to accomplish everything that has to happen in a trilogy. There are exceptions to this for sure, but overall, I usually prefer 4 to 6 book series. I always have a book with me. I always carry a book with me, and when I buy purses or backpacks, I specifically only buy ones that can comfortably fit a book. Hashtag Rory Gilmore. The book that I've read the most in my life is The Last Olympian, the 5th Percy Jackson book. I've read it over 20 times because I had it on audiobook, and I used to listen to it whenever I would go running or like if I was cleaning, and I would just listen to it all the time. And then I also read it in book form a ton of times. So I don't know if I'll ever surpass reading a book more than that. It's been a couple years now since I've read it, and I'm finally done being tired of it because I read it so many times when I was younger. Prettiness, like design prettiness, if a book has a map or it has a pretty title page, or at the beginning of the chapters if there's like pretty art, it does make me love the book more. Like, it doesn't really matter how nonsensical that is. These books are a perfect example. Like, I love these books because they have pretty maps, pretty title pages, pretty like guides to the magical system, and pretty chapter headings, and I just love them more for that. I love to reorganize my bookshelves, and I do it all the time. I've been doing it less because of filming videos. I don't want the background to change all the time. It's so much fun. I love to just put them in different patterns and stuff. It is just so pleasing to me and makes me feel calm and at peace with the world. I'm very picky about what I use as a bookmark, but I don't actually use bookmarks most of the time. Like, I use random objects, but I'm very picky about the random pieces of paper that I use. It has to be the right shape, has to be the right kind of paper. They're really, really random things, but I'm very picky about it. Hopefully I counted right, and those are 25 facts. I hope you enjoyed getting to know me a little bit more and my strange bookish habits. Let me know down below what's one bookish fact about you, or if you're the same in any of my bookish facts. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the subscribe button. I'm Miss Emma Reads a Lot on all of my social media, which I will link down in the description box. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys soon with a new video.